an important passage for a lot of reasons, but talking about the wind in verse 13. Though he flourishes among the reeds, an east wind will come, the wind of the Lord coming up from the wilderness. And his fountain will become dry, and his spring will dried up. It will plunder his treasury and every precious article. In Israel, we'll talk about this later, Israel has an east wind. Here in California, we call them the Santa Ana winds. But in Israel, they have the same kind of phenomena with wind that comes down off the plateau and can wipe out a crop in a day. Can wipe out a harvest if it's not harvested and put away. If it's not secure, the low humidity and the hot wind will just wipe out the green grass. And it's called the wind of the east. It's called the wind of God. Very often, because in their culture, God was viewed as coming from the east. The east is where God lives in the Jewish mindset. And so when the wind comes from the east, it's coming from God's house. Even snow. Take a look at Job chapter 38. Job chapter 38, verse 22. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? God demonstrating that and explaining to Job do you know anything about where I keep the fresh water supply that isn't in the lakes and the streams? We have water supply up in the snow, up in the hills. In Job 36, you talk about the lightnings. In 36:30, God again talking to Job, He says, "Do not people long for?" 36, that's 20. Behold, He covers His lightning about Him, and He covers the depths of the sea. God the lightning are His adornment. In Jeremiah 30 or Jeremiah 23:19, He talks about the storms. Behold, the storm of the Lord is gone forth in a wrath, even as a whirling tempest. It will swirl down upon the head of the wicked. God uses the storms. He uses the weather, heat and cold. You can look up those passages as well. But the Bible is replete with descriptions of the weather. The descriptions of how God uses the weather, how He controls the weather, how the weather is often a demonstration of His power. When God is talking to Job especially, He's saying, where were you? Where were you when I was doing this? When Job is complaining that he has been ill-treated of God. That, in fact, if you look at Job carefully, Job gets to the point where he wants to what? Job wants to have a trial. If I could present my case to God, God would understand that He made a mistake in my case. All these bad things wouldn't be happening to me. And God finally gets tired of listening to this and appears and says, "Gird up your loins like a man. And now let's talk about this." And God then begins. God asks in that section of Job. It's fascinating. God asked Job over 200 questions. And even on a sliding scale, even grading on a curve, Job gets 0 in this examination. The power of God in weather. In the creation, God put all of what we might call the pieces of weather together in the creation account in Genesis 3, 1 through 31. Familiar passage to folks here in this kind of arena. But you remember where God creates the day and the night. He creates the light. He creates the sun, which is vital for the weather in our world. He creates the separation of the seas. Creates all of these things which puts weather in its place. God maintains all the climatic phenomena by His own word, promise, and power. In Genesis 8:22, He says after the flood, what? The seasons, the days, the nights, everything is going to stay in place because it's my promise. This is a fascinating picture. You see clouds and lightning and everything else. This is a volcanically generated lightning storm. Volcanoes will often create their own weather as they kick up all of the debris and all of the dust into the atmosphere. It creates the static electricity, and you create this kind of lightning storm. That's fairly impressive. That's the top of that. The top of that cloud you see there with all that lightning in that picture is a span of about 5 miles. And probably a really, really bad place to be standing, even if it wasn't molten lava that you would have been standing on top of. But this is a demonstration of, and God controls this. God created this. This is all done by His power and for His own purposes. Talking about the power of God. Hurricane Katrina. We all remember Hurricane Katrina. It was in 2005. There's a picture of it there before it came on shore, when it was still a large Category 5. At this point, the diameter of the storm that you see across from beginning to end was larger than the combined area of Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana combined. In fact, you can see off to the right there, in the other little cloud cover, you can see this whole area here. This is Florida from about here to here. So you can see the size of the storm in comparison to the landmass. The eye of the storm of Katrina at this time, which is the middle part there, is larger, at this point, is larger than the state of Rhode Island. And this is the kind of power. In fact, the estimates were, and estimates are interesting, sometimes not sure how they come up with these, but the estimate is that the total energy, the total power generated by Katrina in this storm, if it could be converted to usable electricity, would have supplied all of the electrical needs of the United States for 150 years. Just the power of this storm. And you see, and this is, and to God, this is just, something minor. It's just something that He creates, He's using it for His own purposes. Now, some basic definitions, because these terms are kicked around a lot, but they're not interchangeable. There's a difference between weather and climate. Weather is, or the science of meteorology, is the study or observation of what is happening in the atmosphere in a particular area at a particular time, like today. It is largely an observation and an examination of events, things that are going on. Weather is, to put it simply, is today, right now in this area. Climate, or the science of climatology, is the observation and the study of weather over an extended period of time, usually covering 30 to 100-year intervals. It is largely the observation and the examination of averages. Now, this is very important because in the news today we talk a lot about the weather, but understand the weather is right now. When people are talking about climate change, you're talking about something entirely different. You're talking about large periods of time. And sometimes those words get tossed around a little bit, but just to give you just the basics of what we're talking about here. Now, when we're talking about climate, it's fascinating to understand that the data, because weather is, like my weather station, sending data to the National Weather Service or something like that. Well, how much data do we actually have? Well, pretty much none. On a comparative, when you're talking about, let's assume if I say that the Earth is 10,000 years old, well, I can stay here and keep talking, right? Okay, good. If I say it's 4.5 billion years old, then I get thrown out or something bad happens probably. But basically, we really only have recorded hard weather data in the world since about 1880.